Today I want to talk about the controversy surrounding B.J. Foster, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about B.J. Foster, who reportedly quit the team in the middle of the third quarter against UTEP last night. First, I want to remind you that we have the RJ Young Show podcast up for you to listen. We do the show live on Mondays and Wednesdays at 3 o'clock Tulsa time, and we upload on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can find a link to the description link in the description below. You also should listen to the Saturday podcast, where more often than not, I'm going to have an outstanding guest. This week's guest is Quincy Avery. We talk about quarterback recruiting, quarterback coaching, and the traits that he looks for most in a quarterback. Really fascinating. Please leave a 5-star review. If you leave a positive review, I will read it out loud here on the show on Mondays and Wednesdays. Okay, so Anwar Richardson, who covers Texas for OrangeBloods.com, reported that B.J. Foster quit the team in the middle of the third quarter against UTEP last night. Of course, Texas won that game by a landslide, and Sam Ehlinger throws for over 400 yards. He set a personal record for passing yards in a game, and by all accounts, everybody looked good. The coordinators looked good. The players looked good. With the injury sustained to Jordan Whittington put aside, everybody was okay, right? But Foster was listed on the 2 deep as second string to redshirt senior Chris Brown. Many of you will know B.J. Foster was a 5-star recruit in the 2018 class, and he is a 3-year starter for Texas, or so we thought, right? But now it felt like perhaps B.J. Foster was on his way out at a very tumultuous time for the University of Texas. Now, Chip Brown reports at Chip Brown at Horns 247 reported that Foster was at 12 o'clock workouts for what it's worth. We'll see how this goes. Now, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at this. The first of which is if Tom Herman is allowing players to have feelings and show their emotions and even do things like declaring that they're quitting the team, whether or not he actually did that, nobody's actually been able to confirm that he said he's quitting the team, though I don't think that Anwar will be out there saying he quit the team if he didn't, or didn't lead anybody to that conclusion. That you could be welcomed back into the fold, I think is a good thing, especially right now when Texas, like Oklahoma, like everyone, needs every single player they possibly can on that team because the COVID is still very much out there. And Oklahoma can tell you firsthand what it's like not to have your full strength team, right? We saw 19 players were not out for warm-ups in one reason or another. Some of them COVID related. Some of them were like Gabe Burkich, who missed his alarm clock and didn't wake up on time. It's like that. For Texas, you want to have as many players available as you possibly can in a year where I believe that Texas is a more talented football team than Oklahoma. This after Oklahoma just vaulted into number 3 in the AP Top 25 rankings, and Texas moves to number 9. The difference is Texas has an experienced quarterback in Sam Ehlinger, and they have outstanding skill players from Keontae Ingram to Roshan Johnson to Bijan Robinson. Jake Smith gets back from the hamstring injury. He's going to be great. You added Tarek Black and Brendan Schooler to go along with guys like Josh Moore and, of course, Brendan Eagles. On the other side of the ball, Joseph Asai is a dude, right? I really love Caden Stearns, and I really like B.J. Foster. So knowing that he was able to be this emotional and perhaps be welcomed back is a good thing, and I would commend Tom Herman for that. But since this summer, the stories of not just guys that have been expressing themselves at Texas but around the country have been nonstop, right? We've had players that have decided to quit playing football. We've had players that have said, I'm not playing football until some of the things on the campus change. We know that Texas is dealing with a racist history, and that the situation with playing the eyes of Texas and forcing players to stand for the eyes of Texas has been under tremendous scrutiny. We saw their new president, Hartzell, put out a statement saying this is how we're going to acknowledge how the football team feels. We're also going to get a statue for Julius Witter, who was the first black player to letter at UT football. The Jamel family said, hey, rename Joe Jamel Field Ricky Williams, Earl Campbell Field. So we get Campbell Williamsfield, and that's a great thing because understanding how big and important the influence of the University of Texas is and understanding how they are rounding out how they have treated black folks from jump and how they have continued to talk about black folks or not into the 21st century is very important. And Herman going out of his way to talk about, hey, it's one thing for you to say I root for University of Texas football players. It's another thing when they want to date your daughters or when your daughters want to date them. How do you treat them? How he treats this B.J. Foster situation, I think, is going to be multifaceted. I think that if there is some punishment, we'll probably hear about it. But if there isn't any punishment, I'm not going to be upset about that for two reasons. One, it's not like B.J. Foster's a walk-on. He's not a nobody. He's a guy that could grad transfer and play anywhere right away after this year and still might, right? He's also one of your better defensive backs in a year where you really do need experienced defensive backs. And in this league where people are going to throw the ball around all the time, you brought in Chris Ash to try to tighten up your pass coverage, in which you gave up 450 yards a game, and you had to fire Todd Orlando, who's now defense coordinator at USC, who ain't even playing football right now. So continuing to monitor this situation, we'll see. But I think right now there was a fire. That fire has been stamped out. We'll see how this goes for Texas when they play their Big 12 schedule a week from now. So you got a bye week to try to get yourself together, to try to not just get people healthy, but also to regroup, understand what everybody is chasing, and make a run at trying to unseat Oklahoma as the 5-time defending Big 12 champs. Like, this is a 2-team league for me, right? Especially after what the Sun Belt did to Iowa State, to Kansas State, and to Kansas, right? You have to really focus on those two teams, Oklahoma and Texas, to carry the weight of this conference. And then you have to add in there, no Big 12 team has ever won a college football playoff game. That's a thing that needs to change this year. Whether or not the Big 10 or Pac-12 play, it still needs to change. And knowing that the Big 10 is getting lots of positive momentum to try to get a football season started in October means you don't have a lot of time. It means October 10th is going to get here, and if the Big 10 is playing football, they're going to start playing football the week after that. One of those two teams, Oklahoma or Texas, is probably going to be undefeated going into that October 17th week and be forced to carry the weight of the Big 12 on his shoulders, because you want to see a Big 12 champ go undefeated and win the Big 12 championship and then win a college football playoff game. We'll see how this goes. I think he's got it under control. Knowing how talented they are, I would give guys as much rope as I could, and knowing how stressed everyone is, the least of which is, like, not the least of which are your players, again, even more rope for them. As long as they don't do something that they cannot come back from, like criminal, I'm willing to let them say this one time that they lost their composure, apologize for what they might have done, have a brief meeting with them, and then go play football. Because at this point, every single game is a game you have to relish. Every single game is not promised. We've already seen postponement after postponement. You got to get everybody on the same page. And I think Tom Herman has an opportunity to show the University of Texas that he is the leader that they thought he was when they went into a bidding war to get him away from LSU when he was just destroying people at Houston. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.